Greetings and welcome. This is PJ Jordan. I'm the president slash CEO of the Paladin Jordan Detective Agency, a licensed private detective agency in the state of Illinois. This is an overview of the exam day prep workshop that I offer to folks who are preparing for and studying for their security contractor or private detective license exam. Before I talk about the workshop and its contents, let me tell you a little bit about me and my journey. Back in 1979, I became an Illinois State Trooper and worked in investigations as well as in patrol. At the time of my retirement in July 2008, I was an investigative commander within the Division of Internal Investigation. That is the state police version of internal affairs. As I got closer to my retirement date, which was July 31st, 2008, I began to think about what I wanted to do after retirement. My goal was to find a sexy job. And when I say sexy, I mean something in the corporate world, of course, in the private sector. I was hoping to find something like a job where my new boss would need an internal investigation done, maybe involving employees or theft or whatever. And they would call me, say, on a Thursday night and say, PJ, we're going to fly you to Paris. We need some interviews done on an internal theft investigation. And, oh, by the way, you can take your sweetie with you and do the investigation. And then after you get done, we're going to fly you back home. All expenses paid. Anyway, this is what I fantasized about, and that I felt that would be my goal, to find a sexy job like that. In the meantime, though, I was not able to find that sexy job. I did get a couple of jobs. I got a job working at Southwest Airlines, flagging in airplanes, and I took that job with the expectation that I would eventually have an opportunity to lateral from ramp agent flagging in airplanes to their corporate investigations unit. Unfortunately, while I was there, I learned that the folks who already had those corporate investigations job at Southwest, many of those folks had been there for a while and they weren't leaving. That the turnover rate in those jobs was low, and it would take a while before I would even have an opportunity to get one of those jobs. Next, I left Southwest and I took a job working at Apple with the same idea that I would sell iPhones over the Christmas holidays, and at some point I would have an opportunity to transfer from retail into their corporate investigations unit. And while I was there, I ran into a loss prevention person working at the Apple store, and he and I started talking, and he explained to me that many times Apple relied on private detectives for important internal investigations. And that's when I decided to take a look at the world of private investigations. That was in 2011, the early part of 2011. I did my research, found out that in order to become a licensed private detective in Illinois, you had to submit an application, you had to verify your experience, and then, most importantly, you had to take an exam. I had assumed that with my background in law enforcement, that any test that required you to only receive a 70% on a 75 question multiple choice test, that I would be able to pass that test with half my brain tied behind my back, so to speak. Now, one of the things I jumped over was, in the interim, I had retired from state police in 2008, and in the fall of 2008, I discovered this organization called As Is. Those are the letters ASIS. As Is International, which stands for American Society for Industrial Security International. This is a worldwide organization that has been around since the 1950s, that focuses on providing security, training, and certifications and networking opportunities for folks who are in the field of security, whether they are corporate security folks, law enforcement folks, military folks. This is a premier organization that I had no idea existed until after I retired from the state police. In the winter of 2010, I participated in a study group to learn more about as is and their certifications. They offered at the time 3 certifications, one called a CPP, which stands for Certified Protection Professional, another one for investigators called Professional Certified Investigator, and then a third one which is Physical Security Professional. Anyway, I decided to pursue 2 of the 3 certifications, hoping that they would help bolster my credentials and my marketability should I decide to apply for another job in the corporate world. And I obtained 2 of the certifications, the CPP and the PCI. Now, I will tell you, and I'm going to explain more about this as we go through the overview of my workshop, but to obtain these certifications, I had to sit for 2 very rigorous exams. And just looking at the preparation required and the study materials, I took these 2 exams very seriously from the beginning. The short version of this story is I obtained my as-is credentials in 2010. And then in 2011, that's when I discovered what was required to become a private detective in the state of Illinois. And when I decided to sit for that license exam for private detective, I assumed that because you only needed a 70% to pass and there were only 75 questions, that I did not have to work as hard. I did not have to study as much and put forth the same effort that I had put forth preparing for the as-is exams. And guess what? I failed the state of Illinois private detective exam in September of 2011. After failing the exam, I was embarrassed. I realized that I had to wait another 6 months just to apply and take the exam again. And I did a comparison and a self-reflection on how I was able to do so well with the as-is exams and did so poorly with the state of Illinois private detective exam. And after I changed my study methods, I took the private detective exam again in March of 2012, and I passed the state of Illinois private detective license exam with a perfect score. I got 75 right on the 75 question test. And about a month or 6 weeks later, went on and got my private detective's license, and I have held my license ever since. And so that, in a nutshell, is my journey from becoming a licensed private detective to now where I offer the methods and the materials that help me to obtain my private detective license to other people. Let's move on. This exam day prep workshop is an overview of the state of Illinois private security contractor and private detective license exams, including details of why the exams are deceptively difficult. Also, a description of the workshop lessons, quizzes, audio files, and study methods students may use to prepare for exam day, the next one of which is Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. The reason I believe the state of Illinois exams are deceptively difficult is because over the 10 years that I have been offering these materials, I have run into many folks who have taken the exam, like me, more than once, some more than twice, and some folks more than 3 times. And it's not because they are incompetent or are not smart enough. It's because of the nature of the test. And that's why I feel that my materials will help you, because they focus on what you need to do and what you need to understand about these state of Illinois exams. Let's talk about the workshop content. This 10-week multiple lesson workshop is designed to help you prepare for the state of Illinois exams given on Wednesday, March 8th. The main obstacle in obtaining a private security contractor or private detective license in Illinois is passing the exam. Both exams are deceptively difficult. And here's my rationale or reason for that. Test takers, like myself, assume their background and prior experience are enough to earn a 70%, a C score, on a 75-question exam. This exam has 75 multiple choice questions and answers covering 5 sources for the security contractor exam and 4 sources for the detective exam. The time limit is 90 minutes, and this information comes from the State of Illinois Candidate Study Guide.